So I want to welcome everybody to the fourth episode of Story in Action. My esteemed guest today is Steve Driggs. Steve Driggs is the executive director and founder of Gumco Advertising Agency. They're based in Salt Lake City, and Steve has been in the advertising world for 2 or 3 decades at least, right, Steve?
Too long. Yeah.
Yeah, for a
Since
long
the
time.
yeah,
And so
early
I thought he would be awesome to have on today and just talk a little bit about kind of his background, kind of what he's doing now, and also kind of what he sees happening with creative content, advertising, and stuff like that that we usually talk about on the podcast. So, Steve, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Yeah, thanks, Brandon.
Steve, well, to start, could you just tell us a little bit about your background, kind of how you got into advertising, the types of clients that you worked with in past agencies?
Yeah, cool. My background begins with in graphic design, and I just wanted to do that for a career. I worked at Dolan Smith White a long, long time ago, and they hooked me up to. They said, if you want to make it, go to Art Center.
Oh
So
yeah,
I went to Pasadena
yeah,
and didn't know what I was doing, but started in graphic design, switched to advertising halfway through advertising design. They're one of the few schools that like train people to be art directors.
oh yeah.
My first job was in Toronto, Shite Day, Toronto,
Mm-hmm.
and I worked on like Nissan and some Canadian brands. Went to San Francisco after that and worked on like tech stuff, startup, some software. And then went to Fallon in Minneapolis and worked there almost 10 years. And Fallon was like one of the top agencies for a while.
Yeah,
Worked on BMW, Sports Illustrated, Citibank, and probably had my most success on Citibank.
yeah.
Got a lot of awards and did the Live Richly campaign.
Uh-huh.
And then came back to Salt Lake because that's where I'm from, and joined up with Struck and you to kind of like merged and became a partner at Struck. Worked on tourism mainly, the
And you guys were,
UOT campaign.
yeah, you guys were responsible for the Mighty Five campaign, if I
Yeah, the
remember
Mighty
right.
Five is probably the most
You
famous.
you you're responsible for
Ruining.
attracting millions of people to our lovely national parks here in Utah.
I know when I go down there, I'm like, oh wow,
It was too
I'm
effective, Steve.
sorry, I'm
It was
sorry.
too effective.
Yeah, no, that was. I mean, it was great to work on, but yeah, for a long time it was we couldn't get anybody to come to Utah. They're
Well,
just like
that's what was so
Utah.
funny is that at
Yeah,
the time when you guys launched that, it was like there was a real need for it, and it was a great campaign. I still remember watching that campaign and thinking it was an awesome campaign. I don't know, for some reason I remember that one, and then you guys did the Lagoon one, and I don't know why the
oh
Lagoon one
yeah,
was so rad too. I don't know, but both of those I always remembered and
yeah.
thought they were
Garrett,
super cool.
like some of the work is just like I don't know, definitely, yeah, yeah. When you do it right, you capture kind of the spirit of the place.
Yeah.
There's some people
Well,
want to
I
miss.
think that the thing I remembered about the Mighty Five campaign is you guys did, it was like the first real campaign that I remember being like totally immersed in, and you guys were really leveraging video in a really authentic way. It wasn't like really super polished, it wasn't overproduced, but it was just, it felt like organic and like you were there. And I remember
Yeah,
watching that thinking, yeah, it felt good to watch. It didn't feel like you were getting sold to or pushed into anything. I don't know. That's what I remember about that campaign.
yeah. I think they just went on the shoot for like a week with a family and you know, staged it a little, but it
Yeah.
was kind of genuine. The family
Yeah.
was on visiting you know,
Yeah.
those
Well,
places. And
yeah, that's what I remembered about it. And like the tourism, because at Story Directive, we are working a lot with travel and tourism and health and fitness brands. So that's kind of what we're working with a lot. And I remember that was like when I saw that campaign, it really kind of like pushed me into like wanting to get into more tourism stuff because it was like, oh man, that's a rad campaign, and I kind of
yeah.
wanted to be a part of it. So it was cool.
Yeah. So then after that, Garrett, Phil, and I broke off and we started Gumco.
Yeah,
And we did a lot of tourism, with Gumco.
yeah,
And like Park City through Vale and I don't know, we had like little towns, Taos and Moab and
Yeah, you had Pikes Peak, I
yeah,
think, Otto, I think you guys were doing at the time too, which was cool.
yeah. So we were just yeah, we were really oh, and then like the other part of our business was like like opioid
Oh,
abuse,
yeah, you guys did
suicide
the
prevention, like
yeah,
mental health work,
yeah,
mostly for the state, just trying
yeah,
to get people to, be aware of an issue or
yeah,
change their behaviors or whatever.
yeah, and then, um, and then what did you and then you pivoted
Yeah, we
from
pivoted.
there.
Yeah, we went, we did we helped Boncom on the original Like the World campaign.
Oh, okay.
And, you know, we enjoyed it. It was, played a small part, but the campaign was a big success.
Yeah.
And they said, "Hey, why don't you all come over and join us?"
Yeah, didn't they
So
did they just kinda bring you guys all in-house? Is that kinda what happened?
I mean, pretty much. I mean, they like, you know, I s- they didn't buy Gumco, but we just
Yeah.
brought our clients and ourselves, and they just kind of compensated us,
Oh,
as
okay.
owners for coming over and
Yeah.
just pretty much hired the team. And yeah, it was an awesome experience.
Yeah,
And
yeah, what year was that? That happened after I left California, I
that's
believe.
probably like 2018,
Oh, okay.
somewhere around
And
there.
that was Bonneville Communications. So
Yeah.
what were you working on over there primarily?
Mainly, like, we took over all of our clients, so we still had some
Oh, okay.
tourism and some, public health. And then, like, me personally, I did a lot with the missionary department.
So Bonneville Communications is the agency that the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints primarily uses, and it's owned by the church, isn't it? Or what
Yeah,
is that?
I think it's owned, yes, some sort of, like, division,
Yeah.
like a
Anyway.
for-profit arm, kind of like Deseret
Yeah.
News.
Oh, okay. So you were doing primarily a lot of, church advertising work or church work through Bonneville
Yeah, it
Communications at
wasn't
that
as
point.
creative, but it was very gratifying for me, like, as a member, like, and as a former missionary. It was like one of my main motivations was to help those guys. I mean, they're
Yeah,
really good people that go on a mission and they just
yeah,
don't have the air cover and they get a lot of it's a challenging 2 years. Like,
yeah,
everybody will tell you that. And so we just tried to get people, to get to know the missionaries, to make it more normal,
yeah,
to see that they're just, people that had conviction and
yeah,
it'd be okay to talk to them. And we worked on a lot of the infrastructure that helps people get leads through COVID. Yeah. And then after that, I taught at BYU for a year at the ad lab. And
okay.
now I'm just kind of like reviving kind of Gumco and, you know,
Gumco again. What
yeah,
was it
got a few
like
little
to,
clients.
teach? Did you enjoy that, or did you find it yeah, what was that experience like for you?
I loved it. I mean, I don't know. I like the enthusiasm from somebody starting out,
Yeah,
combined with somebody that's jaded and has done it for too long can work, if you kind of like, I don't know, they're just as talented and
yeah,
they've got all the energy and they're really, smart, creative people. So you just have to
yeah.
try to figure out how to
Kinda steer them in the right
steer
direction
them in
and
the right and the program's good and the students were
yeah,
fabulous and they just, you know, it was really fun to just teach the students right when they were like they just got accepted and now they're into it and they're terrible at first and then over a year, over 2 years, you're like,
yeah,
"Wow, you're getting this." So,
yeah.
for all those reasons, it's fantastic,
Yeah, yeah, totally.
you know?
Was that how did that compare to your education, back at Pasadena?
I'd say it was very similar because toward the end, we were just doing kind of like campaigns as if you got a brief for a real
Oh,
client,
okay.
and then you just make campaigns. So
Yeah,
you'd have to work with photographers and,
yeah,
film people, content people.
yeah,
It didn't have quite the rigor when it came to graphic design, so a lot of the art director students just had to kind of get what direction they could from whoever they could, but
yeah. No, that makes
that's
sense.
the difference between that and art center. It was just like 2 years worth of the
Of
fundamentals.
design and,
Yeah,
like,
design.
graphic design work, yeah. Do you feel like, I actually when I went to school, which was 2000 early 2000s is when I was in school, and I actually
Where'd you
studied
go?
design. So I was actually doing design and then switched over to photography is kind of what I ended up doing. And then but it, since then I feel like design, I don't know, I feel like it's a challenge for designers to like really get to that upper tier. It seems like it's been watered down by technology, and I don't know, it seems like it doesn't take it doesn't have the but good design is still super relevant. It just doesn't seem like though that you it's schools are pumping out designers like they used to. You know what I mean? It's
Right.
like they've shifted, like everybody's just like, "Oh, just use Canva now." And it's like AI and
Yeah.
like I don't know. It's like but that'll never
I think
replace
it's
good
easier to
design.
get to, like, when you're trying to create something, it's
Yeah.
easier to get to good through the technology. Like, it's
Yeah.
probably just as hard to get to great.
Yeah.
And so I think that a lot of brands are just like, "Yeah, that's fine. That's good
Yeah.
enough." And
Well,
so
and
they
yeah,
don't
I think
pay
that
for that difference, you know?
well, and I think that's a good segue into like a little bit about we'll jump back into kind of what you're doing at Gump now, but like I think that's a good segue into kind of what's happened even over my career, and I'm sure you've seen it over yours, is that the quality of work it seems to be shifted from a lot of quantity above quality to instead of quality over quantity. I don't know. There's always
Yeah.
that balance, and in an agency and in the creative world that that's always kind of a thing. But it seems like there's just so many platforms and so many places that they need new, fresh, videos and photos and assets that it's just hard to keep up with that and still
Yeah.
without having like a super giant budget, you know what I mean, for businesses.
Yeah, I think that's just the truth of it. Like, back in the day, it was like you had a campaign and you had usually a TV spot was like your big thing. And then
Yeah,
you still had to do a bunch of like banner ads and
yeah.
newspaper and,
It was mainly print
magazine.
assets, right? Yeah,
Yeah,
that
in the
would
print
company
world,
with that. Yeah,
now it's like all of that plus a million shapes and sizes for social
yeah.
and
We have social, web, you have, all that stuff, and then I even in my career, it was like, they couldn't really you couldn't really leverage video for a while on websites, and then all of a sudden you could do that. So that opened up another can of worms. So
yeah.
it's interesting. So maybe like, yeah, how have you seen that evolution over your career change? I mean, you said like, yeah, and that's even
Well,
how it was when I started. It was like, a client would come to me, usually an agency would come to me and say, "Hey, we have this campaign that we need shot and we need, 10, 15 images from this campaign that we're going to use to accompany like the video that was typically a TV spot, like you said." The company would really push to like one or two big campaigns a year. And now it seems like they've got to take that budget and disperse it through a million other assets through the whole year. You know what I
yeah.
mean? So it's kind of interesting.
No, it's like, yeah, it's hard not to, like, look back at the good old days,
Yeah.
because in a lot of ways, it's really fun now because the tools are more powerful and
Yeah.
you can actually create things. Like, you could go a year back in the day and not produce anything
Yeah.
because it was so expensive. You would just show, like, idea after idea after
Yeah.
idea, and then they'd never do it. And then
They
now
never
it's like,
bite on anything. Yeah.
yeah, or they'd study it, or they'd do, like, animatics or put it through focus groups and,
Yeah.
and it'd get watered down. Now,
Yeah.
at least, looking on the bright side, you can you can sell, like, a campaign or 2 or 3 spots or something and go
Yeah.
make it, you know?
Yeah, no. I mean, that's a good way of looking at it because I think a lot of people are like, "Oh, back in the day," you know what I mean? But, like, the advantage, like you're saying, is that because the cost of production has come down so much over the years that you can be a little bit more creative and
Yeah.
exploratory maybe even a little bit for brands than they could be before, right? Is that a good way
Yeah,
to
there were a lot more things because they had to study each piece of creative before it went out into the world. It
Yeah.
was so much more restrictive. And I
Yeah.
mean, I think they do now, but the problem now is that nobody gets to see your work. You may
Yeah.
make something and it may run for 2 weeks or not
Yeah.
run, or it just kinda gets, put on their feed or something, and you're just
Yeah.
like, "That was amazing." And
Yeah.
it's hard for people to,
No.
you
Yeah,
know
that's the trade-off, right? Is there's just so much content now that we're inundated with it all the time. And so for it to get noticed, it's a real challenge for brands and for companies, to really stand out and have something that's not just the same, or, it's going to get someone to actually engage with that or watch it, or, and I think that's the challenge we face now.
I think it's the hard thing is that people forgot, like, what it was to have a campaign. Like, when you before, you'd have to be
Yeah.
really consistent, and
With
they'd
your
make you stick with a
messaging.
tagline
Yeah.
or some sort of character or
Yeah.
like, look and feel or whatever, and now it's, like, a little bit harder to even, like, have all the disparate pieces add up, and
Yeah. No, I think
people
that's
should have more discipline, like Geico, like, they hammer it through your head, but it's kinda
yeah.
like they have a little format and they stick with it. People
But
don't
they're
stick with it very
consistent.
well.
Yeah, they're
Yeah,
consistent with their branding. Yeah, it's not all over the place, and that is, I guess, the risk, right, of being able to kind of create whatever pops into someone's head. You know
yeah,
what I mean?
exactly.
Like,
You're not gonna have the discipline to keep doing the thing that you found out worked, you know?
yeah, no, that's a good point. I think what you're saying there is it's easy for a brand's messaging to get watered down or lost. I
Yeah,
think both in identity and in messaging, probably, right? Because because it's harder to stay kind of in the right track that they set out, like with the original campaign on, right? Yeah, you don't
yeah.
now.
Maybe
Now
the
you probably,
clients don't real know what to do, and then the creatives are always pushing to make something new,
yeah, yeah,
so
totally,
it's just like, "Oh, okay," they're always just moving on before anything
yeah.
had a chance to stick.
Yeah. One of the questions I had for you was just like, what are the challenges facing the advertising world now? We talked about it for a minute when we first got on, but it's interesting because I've seen over the last probably 15 years, well, even the last 10 years specifically, it seems like, the big agencies with a big, awesome building and a ton of creatives, like those are kind of just shrinking. Everybody's kind of becoming their own creative house. I don't know. It seems kind of crazy. I mean, they're still around, right? Those agencies are, if you're Pepsi or you're Nike or you're always going to have a big agency behind you. But there's a lot of just smaller little agencies that are kind of around now.
Yeah, I think what happened is, like, I mean, in a macro sense, like, the all of the most talented people at the agencies, because I mean, if you really are at a high pressure, high paced agency, you get good at what you're doing because there's just, you know, all those people got hired away by direct clients. And I
Oh,
think they all work at the clients. And like most companies have a small ad agency built in.
their own
They're
in-house
not going to
creative
go,
agency almost.
yeah,
Yeah.
there's people that have marketing departments 20, 30, 40, 50 people big.
Yeah.
Like here in Utah too, like there's lots of companies that have like
It's,
marketing departments bigger than the agencies. Every creative faces that choice of like, oh, stability
mhm.
or they want a job, they want to be valued, they want that consistent paycheck. Or if you don't take that route,
Yeah.
you're gonna be in the on the treadmill. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Always looking for your next thing, always just
Yeah.
trying. I think you can have more fun, get more diversity of projects. It's just
But
it's
you
a
gotta
big
hustle.
trade-off.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, it's that uncertainty and that hustle is always there, kinda keeping you on your toes, right? So,
Yeah.
yeah, no, that's great. So what are you doing? So what's the goal with Gumco moving forward now? You kinda you step back, you jump back into the seat, into the cockpit, and what are you trying to gun down?
It's a good question. I mean, like, I for a long time, my career was starting to be like management,
Yeah.
and client relationships and new business. And I'm really at a crossroads because part of me is like the projects I've done in the past 6 months, have been
Mhm.
like creative projects. It's like,
Yeah.
you want me to just do the campaign and you're gonna like an agency calls or something? And I'm like, wow, like one, I'm rusty. But then after I do it, I'm like, I still got this, you know what I mean? And then it's way more gratifying from a creative sense, you
Yeah.
know? But at the same time, like, I don't know, I was at the phase of my career where I was happy to, just like teaching school, I was happy to have a new generation of, you know,
Yeah.
creatives take over.
Yeah.
So that's kind of, if the world were a little different, I would ramp Gumco up all the way. But now it's just like really tricky to know how to start an
Definitely.
agency. And I'm just facing the choice of like going, wow, do I want to do management, client relationships, new
Back
business?
back to that again, do you like being in the creative seat? It
Yeah,
sounds
even,
like
so that's why
yeah.
I haven't really gone full bore into like making Gumco like, and it's just really hard to compete with in-house. I think most clients have an in-house group
Yeah.
and they plod along fine. They're doing great. Those people in those marketing departments know the client deeper. They know their
Yeah.
target market. They know their products, and
Yeah.
they say, "Oh, you guys are probably just as good or better than an agency." And then every once in a while, they realize that they're getting stale.
Yeah.
They don't have anything new. They're
Yeah.
just doing the same old, the
Yeah.
minimum. And then they're like, "Oh, let's get an agency." They
Yeah.
use that agency for 6 months.
Uh-huh.
They get a bunch of new ideas, and then they go back to the group. So
Yeah.
you don't get anything consistent as the agency. It's
Yeah,
really
I
hard.
think yeah, that is difficult. It's interesting because on the you've always sat in the agency seat. I've always been on more on the production side, and it's a similar battle. And I've seen a shift where before probably, probably 10 years ago, almost probably 90% of my work came through agencies. Now a lot of it's direct to client, or the client's reaching directly out to us, and they already have kind of an idea, and they just need us to kind of execute it. Whether that's on the video
Yeah.
side, the photo side. Um, Interesting though, because they just I don't yeah, I still get work through agencies, but it does seem smaller and smaller every year that an agency's hitting you up to do a campaign like they used to. You know what I mean?
And I think the production world is probably more stable and secure. You've always been doing that.
Yeah,
All the directors,
yeah,
production houses, like cinematographers, photographers
yeah,
are kind of used to that world more than the agency people, you
yeah.
know.
I could see that.
But I think it does put a little bit of a lot of burden on production house
It
that's used
does.
to having somebody come with like an idea and a storyboard, and
Yeah, they
they're
use
gonna
the
know
so
all the
now yeah, that now
things.
the production company is now kind of taking full ownership of that campaign, and then it's even evolving past that now, or they were looking to you for distribution solutions. They wanna know where to put it, how to use it, you know what I mean? And so it is interesting how, like, it just
Yeah,
seems
it's
like it's
like a
all mixed up. You know what I mean?
exactly,
Like
like yeah, sometimes, like, I know creatives that either have started little production companies
Yeah,
or they freelance with production companies,
yeah,
you know?
yeah,
It's a different mindset, when you're thinking about, like, what the big idea is and who you're talking to
yeah,
and what the product's about and how to
yeah.
feature it than it is, like, how does it look,
Yeah,
what's
you're
the
getting
vibe,
we're
like,
definitely
very
yeah,
different.
like, I would say, like, the evolution now is, like, a truck would hit us up, and then there would be a creative director that had the campaign, had everything there, and we were just trying to execute the most beautiful imagery we could, right? Like,
Yeah.
and with the team and the budget that we had, and then we would execute that way, but that's what I found when I moved to California, is I saw this shift happening where clients were going less to agencies and going more to production companies, and that's kind of why I was like, "Well, if we're gonna stay relevant, that's kinda what it seemed like we had to do." You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Was
I
just
think you
like
made a good decision, like
and so it was like, "Okay, how can we keep working with the clients that we love if it's getting harder?" Because that's what was happening. I moved to California in 2017, I think it was, when we moved down there, and I would go to these big agencies in LA, and and whatever. And there was like, okay, this is great stuff, but we've got 20 people deep before we hit you. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, and you're like, oh, okay, cool. And so it's like, yeah, I found myself at this point. And it was also at the precipice of like clients were wanting more video work and they just wanted more from me. And so it was like, okay, it made sense at that point to kind of shift and start my own thing, but that didn't necessarily make it easier. It just kept us more relevant and it allowed me to do more things, but it's still, oh, you're still hustling all.
As a creative director, or as like a professor or whatever, is like I could like identify in creatives, like whether they're like a generalist or a
Mhm.
specialist.
Yeah,
Usually the generalists are, they've got a good connection to like the end product,
yeah,
and they can see the whole thing, but they're not like awesome at any one thing. And
yeah,
then you've got people that are specialists that are like, I'm a cinematographer, or
yeah,
I'm a graphic designer, or whatever.
yeah,
And it's really tricky. Like, if you're the production company, you either have to say, we are the specialists at production,
yeah,
or we are we'll get it done for you and do all these other roles. And it's just like a different mindset. And I think
yeah,
that some people kind of can balance both, or
yeah,
they're put on one hat and then another.
yeah,
But it's, demanding to have
yeah,
to be the generalist and the specialist,
yeah.
or to be the generalist and then hire other specialists, or be the
Well, and what
specialist and hire generalists,
yeah, I mean,
it's
and kind
tricky.
of what yeah, I mean, that's a great I mean, what I've done is I've kind of just stayed in my lane of the industries that I know well, which is travel and
Oh, you're a
tourism.
specialist in those. Yeah, that's a
Yeah,
good
so
way to look at it.
instead of saying, "Hey, we can produce anything for anybody," that is not true. I learned really quick that I could produce really great work for travel and tourism, health and fitness. And that was like, because that's what I knew and that's what I understood and that's what my background was. We're a production company that's niched down into very specific industries that we know
Yeah.
we can serve well. And I think that's kind of what's happening across the board is that yeah, because I think if you're to your point, if you're too much of a generalist, you're probably not going to stand out in
No,
any
you're just gonna
industry
be
really
like
well.
everything's average.
Yeah, it's just like okay work, right? But you're never going to. Whereas when I started Story Directive, I wanted to be the narrative driven storytelling guy for these specific industries. And I knew I could
Yeah.
do that well because I knew those industries really well. You know what I mean?
Well, it's good to kinda know who you are and what you're doing. It's The clients may be asking for more like agency-like
Yeah.
services from you, and that's where you're gonna be like, "Oh, man, I kind of know the target. I kind of
Yeah.
know these products. I
Well,
kind of
yeah. I
know
mean,
this
and that's,
industry."
yeah, we kind of, we've been forced to dive into like the messaging side of things, making sure the messaging is on par with the brand. And, you have to get more into like the background of the brand and the client more than you would whereas just a freelance photo guy or a cinematographer that would come in and just, hey, okay, what are we doing, you know what I mean,
Yeah.
like what do you need me to shoot, you know what I mean, you do have to kind of get more of the background on that. When I started Story Director, really the motivation behind it was to just start something that was bigger than me that I could bring on other guys to help and kind of grow the next generation of good storytellers and photographers and cinematographers, and so Story Directive kind of gave me that vessel to do that. Whereas if it was just Brandon Flint, you know how it is, the client wanted me doing everything. Whereas Story Directive, it gives me a little bit more creative autonomy, I guess maybe is the word.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I can delegate things out a little bit more, which has kind of been fun. So I don't know. It's
Yeah,
interesting.
that's good. That's makes sense, and that's good job getting that,
Yeah, you just, I
like,
don't know.
evolving and growing. I mean, that's the only way you can stay relevant, is just keep
Yeah,
growing.
I mean, I think in the creative world, I think that's just mandatory. It seems like, you know what I mean? Like, because you kind of evolve or die kind of
Yeah.
because I don't know, it just because of technology, because of the way things change and evolve, you kind of are always in a sense reinventing. Like I've like over the 20 years of my career, I think I started out shooting anything anybody would ever pay me to shoot, the generalist, and then that evolved and I kind of found what I liked doing and have kind of honed in on that, and and it's been good, but not easy. One of the things I like to talk about on this podcast specifically, and the reason why I started it, is because I wanted to get a better pulse on kind of people in your shoes, kind of what you're seeing, what's happening with like specifically like storytelling and video. I mean, I look at you, Steve, as kind of one of the pioneers in kind of that brand storytelling that you guys pioneered. I mean, there was just the campaigns that you guys did well were all, they felt very organic and very story driven, and not, you were selling an experience more than like a specific thing, I guess. You know what I mean? And I always thought that was rad. How have you seen that kind of evolve over the last few years?
I mean, like, I think the video is still as relevant as ever.
Yeah.
So if you know, like, if you can be a storyteller and you can, like, there's a lot that goes into any video,
Yeah.
from the script to the casting to the
Everything.
shooting and edit
Yeah.
and like music, everything. It's like a pretty complicated universe
Yeah.
all in there. And then when you layer that on top of like marketing and
Yeah.
client needs and shapes and sizes and how it's going to get distributed and media and the results and all that stuff. I mean, it's still really like I think if you're a good storyteller, you can adapt to different mediums and different
Yeah.
clients and different assignments pretty easily. And
Yeah.
luckily, video is a great medium, and
Yeah. I
it
agree.
seems like it's only growing.
Yeah.
Like if marketing or advertising or whatever is shrinking, like video is growing. So it's like,
Yeah. I agree with that.
yeah, you just have to like if you're starting out or whatever, and you're trying to figure out how to make it. Like I think you do have to like think generally about telling stories,
Yeah.
and communicating and making people feel something is probably a better place to start than say, I do this one thing, you
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
and then you're probably going to be fine,
Yeah.
because
No, that's
it's,
good advice.
you know,
Yeah, I mean, that was kind of my thought when we started Story Directive, is that kind of the precipice for when I started my thing was I shot this story about this trail runner in Southern California named Sally McRae, and it was called Yellow Runner, and it was my first foray into directing a video. And it was just a short little 2.5 minute little story about
yeah,
her
sound.
background. Yeah, and it was just a short little story about her background, what she loves about running, and kind of her background. In a nutshell, she came from a pretty rough background, had an abusive father, got married, had kids, and then became this ultra athlete through Nike and was a sponsored athlete. And it was a cool story, and I hadn't heard a story like hers, and so I reached out to her, and we shot and created this. I edited it and everything, and then it was just, and then I remember I showed it to, she said she showed it to the rough cut before we released it to like a couple of her friends, and they started crying. And I thought, I have never in my lifetime created anything that made a grown man cry, and I
In a
was
good way.
and I was just like, and at that moment I was hooked, and I realized, like, as great as I mean, my background is in photography, but and I love photography. I think it's still a powerful medium, but I'd never had made a man cry by looking at one of my photos. So I was
Yeah.
just like, I realized right then the power of storytelling and emotional storytelling. When you can connect with the viewer, there's just something about video that is really powerful, that is hard to recreate in any other medium. And from that moment on, that's when I was hooked, and I was like, okay, this is what I want to do.
Photography was one of the first victims falling to like stock or,
Yeah. Well, that
you know
was
what
the
I
thing.
mean?
I had a stock agency. But it was every year it was just getting harder and harder and harder to get in front of and get work. And so, and then I kind of transitioned into the video side of thing, and it was really good. Just, I mean, from a business standpoint it made sense, but also just from a creative standpoint it really just reinvigorated my creative mind again, and got me excited about shooting and picking up a camera again, and what kind of stories can we tell. And that was really the precipice of Story Directive, was just like, this is kind of the stuff that I wanted to do moving forward, and it was awesome. So yeah,
Yeah, it is.
I think that's not going anywhere. Where do you see things kind of moving forward as you step back into a creative role with Gumco and kind of wanting to get back into or getting back into, I mean, you've always been in it, but jumping back into the creative seat again. Where are you wanting to take Gumco, and where do you see things going from a creative standpoint?
I mean, I think that if like throughout my whole career, like if you're not offering like amazing creative is hard to get, and
Yeah,
it still is hard to get. So if you're offering anything else, you're offering something that's a commodity, and that makes
yeah,
you vulnerable. So
yeah,
it's just like great creative work that's surprising and, you know,
yeah. I mean, I think
makes
there.
people cry or whatever, or
Yeah,
feel something, laugh,
yeah,
whatever is like only reason that you would do it. And one, it's gratifying. Two, it's like you have to be able to offer something a computer can't quite do yet, like
yeah.
hopefully it never can do it, but like it's still important, and I think people
Mhm.
can tell, like
Yeah.
they want to connect with people and a brand. I think
So
they're okay connecting with a brand when if it's genuine, and I think
yeah,
people can sniff out things that are just kind of like either phoned in or like AI or just
yeah,
not smart or
mhm.
thoughtful. And so
Yeah, I
like,
mean, how would you define, I guess, like, a follow-up question, how would you define great creative to somebody? Because I think that that's true. Could you put a definition on that in your mind?
well, like from the advertising side, it's always been the positive side is that it's pretty wide open.
Yeah,
It's not like if you usually it's kind of directed by the brands. So if you're
yeah,
working on a certain brand, you probably that kind of creates your world. But
mhm,
I love things that are like I don't know cinematic. I like things that are
yeah,
funny. I like
yeah,
things that are like poignant. I like things like when we did a lot of the public health stuff, we
yeah,
did things that were really serious.
yeah,
And it was like all those, you just had to kind of see the assignment, what you're trying to do, who you're trying to connect with, what your message
mhm,
is, and then kind of like match that with the right tone. And then if you do something that's just super compelling, it can be all those different flavors. And
yeah,
that's the fun of it. If you can, have the variety, but usually it takes specialists to pull off the highest level of any one of those things. That's where
yeah,
advertising agencies are probably like floundering is that they're like, wait, we used to be like the marketing specialists. And now it's like
yeah,
everybody can kind of do that. So it's
yeah,
like, oh, we're creative specialists, we're media specialists, we're
yeah,
interactive specialists.
yeah.
And it's just
It's
getting
like an
hard to
identity
define yourself
crisis a bit, right? Like,
a little bit. Yeah.
happening. Yeah. Yeah, I think that's a good that's and I 100% agree. I think, um, there's pros and cons to the ease of creation now. In fact, my wife showed me this funny meme yesterday that said, "We need more content destroyers, not content creators," which I
That's
thought was
funny.
kind of funny
That's funny.
because there's like this sea of mediocrity kind of content, and then but once the if you can get above that and stand out, I think it really does stand out, but it's hard to get above that. Sometimes there's just I describe it as just noise. There's just so much content noise out there that is not giving you that satisfaction of a great experience when you engage with it, that I think people get a little bit disillusioned with the amount of content that is around, you know what I mean? And
Yeah.
so I think
It's
it's
just,
hard.
yeah,
But I mean, maybe to wrap things up on this, because I want to be mindful of your time, is just, yeah, where do you see things going from here? Any thoughts?
man, giant question. I think that if you're a person that it has great taste, you connect with people, you hone your craft, you know, whether it's a photographer, filmmaker,
Yeah,
designer, anything, I think you're just always going to be relevant.
yeah,
And I think that it just becomes harder and harder, but the smartest, best people are going to be okay.
yeah,
Like if you're not really pushing yourself and you're in a comfort zone, you
yeah,
it might be a little bit more like, oh, you might be vulnerable, but I think that people still want good things to buy. They still are going to like brands. They
mm,
have a lot of free time. They're going to watch TV. They're going to
yeah,
watch their phones. They're gonna
Yeah.
people may even have more, you know, what is it called?
Disposable.
Discretionary income, you know?
Yeah, just
Yeah, disposal. Like, there's going to be a lot of need for marketing and film and ads, and it's
yeah,
just like, who can make it that they work and
yeah.
they're not in a lane, they connect and they build brands.
Is there anything, that you're looking for with Gumco that, I can help you out with or connect you with or anything like that?
Uh, Thank you for asking. No, I think that, I just know that we're gonna stay. I don't think we're gonna become a production company. It's
Yeah,
like it's like if I knew myself, it's like it's always the front half. It's the idea, it's understanding people,
yeah, yeah,
and so it's gonna be like sometimes you can kind of re-engineer that, like with all the, assignments going to production companies, maybe they're like,
yeah,
"Oh, shoot," it's just who the lead agency is might shift,
yeah,
but it might be okay to be like, "Oh, we're like a little creative,
yeah.
little boutique," and that's fine.
Do you know what type of clients you're going to be catering to, with Gumco moving forward?
I mean, it's still the same. It's travel and tourism and public health or kind of
Cool.
like nonprofits. We're like, I want to do some good in the world. So
Yeah,
if there's small clients that don't have budgets and they want good stuff and they need good stuff, I'd take them on just
yeah,
because it's like, oh, it's a creative opportunity. It's
yeah.
doing good for some cause. I'd still do it.
Not necessarily all about the money at this point.
Not right now.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I think that's a good place to be.
You need it. You need to be healthy. You need to pay people.
Yeah,
Like
totally.
good talent needs to be compensated. So
Yeah,
so it's a balance, but you know,
yeah. No, that's great. No. Well, thanks so much. I mean, any other thoughts or anything else?
no, it's good to Brandon, good to reconnect. Yeah, it's been too long.
Thanks so much for your time today, Steve. I think it was a great chat, and I think really good insights for someone that's been in the industry for a very long time and has a lot of knowledge and expertise. Well, thanks so much, Steve. Good luck
All
with
right.
everything, and thanks for your time today. It was awesome having you on.
Okay. Thanks, Brandon. Yeah, thanks.